Good evening. As President Assad's regime falls and chaos ensues in this war-torn country, there is once again talk of the mass migration of Syrians, which has proved devastating for Europe over the last decade. It cannot be repeated. Following the eye-watering figure of 1.7 million people having entered Britain over the last 2 years alone, with global pressure for us to accept many more in this increasingly turbulent world, many people are saying enough is enough. So why does immigration matter? And why are current numbers such a problem? Is it born out of suspicion or hatred of those who come to these islands? Is it born out of prejudice? Is it a xenophobic public brainwashed by so-called right-wing media and so-called populist politicians? No, it is common sense. Millions of people around the country are struggling to get GP appointments, school places for their kids, and a roof over their heads. Unlike the liberal leftist elite who champion open borders, it's ordinary people who are paying the price for this wild population experiment that no one voted for. But it's more than just the practicalities: housing, the welfare bill, integration. It is a growing feeling among the people that the country they love no longer belongs to them, as the makeup of our towns and cities changes at unprecedented speed, and with it, imported competition for resources. When did the idea of having rigorous borders become so controversial? Because, of course, the control of borders is an idea as ancient and as noble as the nation-state itself. Political geography is defined by territorial boundaries, and the integrity of those boundaries is the founding principle of a coherent and successful society. What's the point in having borders at all if you don't police them? Now, Britain has always been a diverse set of islands. We've been invaded by all and sundry, from the Romans to the Vikings to the Normans and beyond. We've always been an outward-looking country. Britain has always had a global mindset, most notably during the British Empire, when we controlled a quarter of the globe. And, by the way, where we did far more good than bad, let me tell you, which the legacy of the Commonwealth abundantly proves. Meanwhile, our economy has always benefited from talented and skilled people coming into the UK to start businesses, to create art, to work in the NHS, to fight in our armed forces, to teach in our schools, to police our streets, to care for our elderly. I myself am the son of Irish immigrants, and proudly so. What about the Sunak family, who came from East Africa to the UK in the 1960s? And their son, Rishi, wound up running the country for 18 months. Personally, I think he did a brilliant job, and I'd have him back in a flash. But hey, it's all about opinions, isn't it? Our society benefits from an array of talents and a nation made up of every conceivable religion, race, creed, colour, you name it. Britain is a global beacon of integration. Show me a nation less racist and a nation more open, tolerant and welcoming than the UK. But that goodwill is being tested, and this glorious British project faces mortal peril as politicians like open borders fanboy Boris Johnson, asleep at the wheel, have allowed the delicate alchemy of incomers and outgoers to be thrown gravely out of kilter. Too much immigration is devastating. It creates a low-trust society and ghettoised communities living parallel lives. You've got British citizens not speaking the language, not embracing the culture, and not subscribing to British values of tolerance, fair play, effort, duty, hard work, good humour and decency. Those appalling so-called peace marches, with their implied support for Hamas terror, being the perfect example. Sensible immigration is of huge value, but mass uncontrolled immigration is the theft of a nation from its own people. And those people want their country back. Using the internet without a VPN
is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. We want to help protect you. This video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the VPN to help keep you safe. Now, you might be asking, what is a VPN? Well, a virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, such as at airports, coffee shops, friends' houses, or even in your own home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network have the ability to steal your personal data with ease. T-Mobile reached a settlement this year with the US Federal Communications Commission after they suffered data breaches in 2021, 22, and 23. In 2023 alone, over 37 million customers' data was exposed. And it's not just hackers to be concerned about. Information can be censored. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news content that you love. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Plus, we've got a huge GBNews discount. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get 83% off PIA. That is under £2 a month, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to piavpn.com/GBNews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Let's get the views first up of tonight's top pundits. The head of communications at Popular Conservatism, a very good friend of mine, Annunciata Rees-Mogg. We also have peer and former Boris Johnson advisor, which is awkward because I've just been rude about him, Coolvia Ranger, Lord Ranger, and another pal of mine as well. One of the most respected figures within the Labour movement, former top Labour advisor, Paul Richards. Annunciata, how are you this evening?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Britain has thrived and prospered from immigration, but it's about the level, isn't it?
It's about the level, and it's about who you're encouraging or allowing to come in. And as things stand, the net cost to the economy of having this level of immigration, of unskilled, unqualified people, is a huge drain on the economy. And by bringing more people in, you're just spreading the resources more thinly, and everyone ends up worse off.
And is there an issue about the goodwill and generosity of the British people being exploited, and that could turn?
I fear it could, and I think we are a very welcoming country, and we do love welcoming people, and we've just been looking at the situation in Syria, where I think Assad killed over 500,000 people. There are 14 million people displaced from their homes because of his war and his regime. And the British people didn't mind taking in around 40,000 because they were in genuine dire need. The problem is that our system is being completely abused for those who want to come purely for economic gain, and by doing that, they're draining the economy for the rest of us.
Coolvia, something's got to change, hasn't it?
It does, but I think we need to look back to go forward. Annunciata has mentioned a lot of things here. Immigration, a big blob sitting there that we need to deal with. But immigration has been on a journey itself over the decades. Every wave of immigration, you mentioned your parents and ancestors, the Irish immigrants, the West Indies, the East, African Indians, Uganda, etc., etc. Each wave came in and there was resistance. There was political challenge, there was cultural upheaval, and the country's been through that. We've come out a better nation, a better Britain, because of that change and the struggles we went through. What we now have is very much an economic conversation around the population of Britain, because we all know there's that pyramid where it has changed, where we have much more of an inverted pyramid of older people in our economy and the younger people that can't drive it. So we need immigration as a force for economic growth, but we also need immigration to service our hospitals, adult social care, all kinds of different public services. And the question is, how do we get the right, sensible immigration to manage that? And I think it has been abused. Our system has been abused. But then layer upon that the challenge in NCR that you've mentioned, things like Syria that cause a massive humanity to move, which, by the way, the only reason I'm here is because of partition in India in 45, which caused 10 million people to move, biggest mass movement of humanity. These things cause asylum, a need for people with desperate circumstances to find a place to live. All of these things are part of this big blob that we call the immigration challenge that we need to deal with.
Absolutely. Our population is ageing. But we can't run our economy as though it's a Ponzi scheme. You can't just keep bringing in at the bottom to hope that you can support the top. It doesn't work like that.
And we have over a million young people not active in the economy of working age.
We do, and we have incredibly anti-family policies generally.
Yeah.
And we should be encouraging people to have children. Of course, we don't want an ever-ageing population. But we shouldn't be trying to always do this short-term sticking plaster of bringing in people that we haven't produced ourselves. We should do our own training, we should have our own children.
I stood on the Michael Howard manifesto in 2005 of controlled immigration, where still the Conservative Party was seen as being racist for asking for controlled immigration. That conversation has moved on, because what we do need is the right immigration, and that's what Boris Johnson was looking at when we were looking at a point system, looking at the skills the economy needs. Now it's a more level of sophistication. But as I say, we have to deal with the asylum side, the illegal immigration side, and yes, the abuses as well. And we must get better at controlling that over time.
Paul Richards, as you counsel for some time there, what are your thoughts on this?
This will do Culver no good at all in Tory club, but I completely agree with everything he's just said. I think at every stage of immigration, going all the way back to the Huguenots, and then the Jews and the Irish and the Windrush generation, there's been this same moral outrage of these people coming in, speaking a funny language with funny food like fish and chips.
Well, there's no problem if you speak a different language when you don't learn British.
And you know, all these signs in Hebrew and Yiddish around the East End, it's a disgrace. And we had the Aliens Act in 1906 to stop them from coming, etc. In every generation there's been the same conversation. And just like you say, we've got over it, people have assimilated, we've got on with it, and it's been a benefit to our culture and to our economy.
But and I totally agree.
And that is the story.
We all agree on that.
From the Dolans and everyone else.
Now, I hate to use the G word, but I think this is gaslighting of my viewers and listeners who are concerned about the level of immigration.
Can I address that point? Can I address that point directly? Because I think the reason why people are concerned about immigration is because of the changes in our economy, which are dislocating people from traditional jobs, different communities. You know, the world is changing because of technology so fast. So who do you blame for all this change? Immigrants.
Well, wait a minute.
And they're not to blame.
Rayner saying she's going to build 1.5 million houses. Well, 1.7 million people entered the UK in the last 2 years.
Who's going to build the houses? Who's going to build the houses? We need immigrants to do those kind of jobs in the first place. The health service would fall over without immigrants, and not just.
Point that we're talking about numbers we've never seen in our history. That's the point. It's not the issue of immigration; it's the scale.
No,
because do you not acknowledge that?
No, I don't, because the population has always grown from the Romans onwards, and that's good for us.
Is this gaslighting?
I think it is. I think that the British people completely see through this and know that there is a problem. Too many people are coming. We're a crowded island. We're
not a crowded island at all.
Housing, GP places, schools, you name it. Here's the thing, Paul. Here's a question for you, because I think this is a colossal opportunity for Sir Keir Starmer. You want him to be in power for 10 years. I think the way he achieves that, right? I think the way he achieves that is to get legal net migration down to 100,000 by the end of this Parliament. If he does that, I think he remains Prime Minister, should he do it.
I think you have to have robust borders, and you have to kick out the illegals, and you have to do all of that. But no, I don't think you have a number on it, because how can you look into people's souls and say whether they're going to move here or not? We don't know that, do we?